All right, hey, thanks everyone for coming, and whether you're Zoom or here live, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy holiday season to be here tonight. My name is Scott Beasley. I'm chair of the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities, and it is so good to see many of you here in person. Got a great agenda tonight. We have had a ton of last minute changes, mostly good, but I got to cheat and say, for those of you looking at your screen at home or in the room, things have changed a little bit. So we're going to start with Susan, and as always, is going to lead us with the resource of the month. And then her and Ken Rees, one of the original founding members of this group, are going to take us through a little history of the coalition, because we celebrated 5 years back in September. So thanks to all of you who have been here from the start. And then my original title for this meeting was rejected by the steering committee. That was "Show Me the Money." But with Measure B, quite certain that it's not passing. We're just kind of saying, okay, where do we go from here? What funding mechanisms, and not just what are they, but how do you get that? So our lineup for tonight, again, is actually not on there. So we have from NRCS, Evan Smith. Many of you know Evan. Going to talk about some options for some matching funds for clearing your land. We have Jamie from the Fire Safe Council. Yes. All right, talking about another funding mechanism. And Chief Mathias talking about CAL FIRE options. And then the main presentation is going to come from a group from the county. So I know from the CEO's office, we have Ariel. From OES, we've got Alex. You're just hanging out. All right. Yeah. We've got Alex, and then Amy, grant writer for the county here as well. Grant coordinator for the county. And then on my list, what am I missing from? Is that the county? Yeah, no. So. All right, so that's your lineup for tonight, and then tentatively next meeting Tuesday, February 7th. So we always take January off. Our planning for this occurs a month at a time, so just to give the steering committee a break, so we don't have to meet through the holidays. We take January off. We'll hopefully see you back in February, but again, I'm going to say tentative. Mark your calendars, but please check your email as that draws closer. We've got a couple meetings going on that we might be restructuring things a little bit in the new year, so stand by for some exciting news. So that's what I got. So with that, resource of the month, Susan.
So Jim, would you come up here, please?
I'm a resource of the month.
Yes. Our resource of the month is Captain Jim Mathias.
Or Chief Jim Mathias.
Chief, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I got demoted.
Who has been giving us a wonderful monthly thing about CAL FIRE for as long as I can remember, about 40 years. And do you want to get the news, or should I?
Oh, well, yeah, I can do it.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is my last meeting. I'll be retiring as of December 22nd.
Oh,
so,
let's have
CAL FIRE fashion, I brought my replacement with me, Landon Hack, who January 1st will be starting in my position. He's the battalion chief locally here. He's lived here the vast majority of his life, and he's currently the Smartville, Columbia Hill battalion chief, and will assume my duties as of January 1st. So I leave you in really good hands.
well, let's have another round for Chief. Sure.
You know why wildland firefighters and Santa Claus like Christmas so much?
No.
The rain, dear.
Oh. Finally, after 2 years of pandemic Zoom, he can hear people laugh. It used to be everybody was muted.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So yeah, on behalf of the coalition, thanks so much for everything you've done for this community.
Absolutely.
And yeah, super excited to have Landon with us. You and I have spent some quality time at the back of some F-250s staring at the flames. So excited to have you in this position, and hopefully you'll be able to fill the roles, which means dad jokes. You're going to need to scour the internet for dad jokes. All right, kicking it right back to Susan and Kent to walk us through the history of the coalition, celebrating 5 years.
Before I bring Kent up here, the founder of this group, I want to mention that there's cake over there, yummy homemade cake from Elizabeth Brizard, who we thank very much. And you can feel free to get up at any time and go over and get yourself a piece of cake. She wrote on it, Happy 5th Anniversary, Coalition of Firewise Communities. Thanks for all the great efforts. So take some home. You can't eat it all. So Kent, I'd like to introduce Kent Rees, who started this group 5 years ago, and he's going to talk for just like 1 or 2 minutes.
Oh boy,
So
my time got cut even further. I want to ask, is there anybody that was with us at the initial meetings, Firewise community reps? Anybody that in this room that came to those initial meetings? Susan and John. Okay, thank you. Well, then you two will have to keep me honest, okay? So I would like to just start off by saying,
Okay, you can stand over here.
where do you want me to stand? Well, it's in my face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This may seem all normal and usual to be coming together to talk, share ideas, and to discuss what's going on in your own Firewise communities and learning from each other. But you know what? This was an unusual, radical idea 5 years ago. This was not expected. We started out with a kernel idea that was brought to us, a group of us, from the executive director of the Firewise organization, Joanne Drummond, who served in Nevada County for about 14 years. She went to a meeting, came back, talked to several of us, and said, you know what? We just kicked around this idea of a coalition. Well, we said, what's a coalition? She explained to us this was a way for people to meet on a regular basis and share ideas and learn from each other. And we said, hey, what a great idea. All of these Firewise communities are located so far away from each other. How does anybody ever get together, talk to each other, do anything together? And we have a whole lot of problems in common. And we have ideas that we can share and learn from everybody, learn from each other. So Joanne turned to me and said, hey, well, Ken, why don't you see what you can do about getting this thing going? Okay, I was in sort of part of my volunteering mood at that time.
the rest of it is on my side.
Pardon?
The rest of it is on my side.
Oh, really? Okay. So I don't want to get too far into this, except to say that this was a group that started out, we had probably about 30 or 50 people in the library, in Madeline Helling Library, to start out with the initial meetings. And it started from there, and people saved our lives along the way. All of a sudden, Jeff Peach shows up, starts typing, don't know what he's doing. He decides that he's going to start taking minutes. We didn't ask him, nothing. Eventually, I asked Susan Rogers to help me out and be the vice chair. And she stepped up, and here she is. She's still here. What a courageous person.
And talk about how we got here, and I want to show how the OAS grew at the same time. Over 5 years, there's like 5 times growth for both us and the coalition. We had 20 at our first meeting, not quite as optimistic as Ken had indicated, and now we get more than 100 when you include the public on Zoom. The county only had 1 staff member when we started, and now they have 5. So over 5 years, we've had 5 times growth. What is the coalition? We are an all-volunteer organization with no legal status. From California law standpoint, we're what's called an unincorporated association. We have no staff, no dues, no budget. We produce monthly meetings to share information, to amplify the county's efforts to educate, and to be a voice of the people for advocacy. Our first meeting was in September 2017, and Kent invited 44 people to come. And at the first time, Francis was the co-chair at the beginning. And we met in the community room there at the library every month. We got in our 20s there for about the first 6 months. We formed some working groups, and a lot of you who are newer don't know this, at our second meeting, Pete Williams, who's on the board of the Fire Safety Council, led us in an exercise that included voting with colored dots, and we formed working groups. And we decided that the working groups should cover enforcement, evacuation, and real estate. And you'll find out later what happened to all of those working groups. But the enforcement working group was going to compile and communicate to government agencies what we thought ought to be done. I'm not going to read any of this, but you can see they had a lot of things in their write-up of what they were going to try to accomplish. Our evacuation working group was made up of guys mostly in Alta Sierra, kind of tech nerdy guys, retired engineers who wanted to see how other communities would move people away, and they studied tsunami warning systems and sirens and all kinds of that stuff. They said that Alta Sierra is ground zero for this problem. We also know that in there. And they came up with ideas that had to do with directional signs and lights and different colors and stuff. And the real estate working group was Kent and me, and we wanted to improve awareness based on what the group had told us for when a house is being sold, that was a good point when you could make a difference about defensible space. And the association said they might actually use the defensible space advisory checklist from the Fire Safety Council as a requirement. I don't think that ever happened, but we talked about it. And we even had talked about a certification program for Firewise realtors so they could get a training. And there were realtors who were interested in that. That didn't happen for various reasons, but it was an idea that we had. 6 days after our second meeting, there was the Lobo fire and the McCourtney fire started the same day and destroyed 48 structures here and 13 there. So that kind of raised awareness. And in December of our first year, we talked about some bylaws. I became vice chair, and Kent and I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting to describe what we were doing. So these were the Firewise communities that were active at the end of 2017. And they comprised just about half of the total population because they included a lot of big homeowner associations and that sort of thing. So by March, 6 months later, we had 27 attending our meeting. We voted in some bylaws with goals and that sort of thing, mission and goals and officers. And all of this is available on our website. In April, we did a survey on how do you communicate with your Firewise community? And we're going to be implementing that again next year because there's about 4 times as many Firewise communities now as there were then. And it really varies how Firewise communities can get the information out to their people. For example, in Lake Wildwood, there may be no better than 25% of the emails that they have on the Lake Wildwood Firewise community of all of the 2,800 homeowners in Lake Wildwood. So you ask yourself, well, why don't they have all the emails if it's a homeowners association? Well, the Firewise committee is different from the homeowners association. And sometimes they talk to each other, like in Lake of the Pines. And other times they talk to each other, but they don't share information. So it's all over the map in terms of the Firewise community's ability to actually get what we send out to the residents. And so we're going to do that survey again. The enforcement group in April reported that their top issue was lack of enforcement, which the fire agencies were supposed to be doing at that time. That's changed since then. But they did report that supervisors seemed very interested in the Firewise movement. In May of 2018, Kent suggested we approach the county about putting a fire safety message into annual property tax bills that you all get in November if you own your property. And the county liked that idea. So I made up this thing here where they gave us one side of the tax insert and they put their own code red message on the other side. And that was a great idea on Kent's part because it gets mailed to everybody. So that was a big success, I think. Also in May, Kent described this 30-day cleanup courtesy notice that they use in Cascade Shores to solve the problems that exist on parcels and educate homeowners before the enforcement folks have to get involved. And they were getting a 70% positive rate on that. So we shared that with the other groups. And also that month, the evacuation group reported that they met with CAL FIRE and OES, and they talked about signage and alerts and all that sort of thing. In June, Terry McMahon and Consolidated sent out 500 notices of vacant parcels that needed fuel reduction. And he pretty much told us that he was inspired to do that by our meetings and all the people talking about vacant parcels and the problems there. And over the next following months, he reported good success coming from that letter that he sent out. Our guest speaker that month was Matt Wallen talking about emergency drills that they held in Alta Sierra and Wildwood. And Chief Wallen said he was excited about our motivation and drive and thought our work was positive for us. And Kent resigned that month, Bob Long took over, and Joanne Drummond, there was a changeover in management by the city council. About the second half of our first year, the Alta Sierra engineers again met with OES and Public Works, talking about what they can do. Nothing ever came of this really, but there was a lot of interest, and I think really, I don't know for a fact, but as you can imagine, it'd be very expensive and complex to install some sort of signage system down here. Virginia reported creating an emergency alert buddy system in Lake Wildwood when they had a little fire down there, and she spent 2 hours waking up 27 people. So she came up with this system, which she then shared with the rest of the coalition. And our guest speaker that month was John Balsarian, who was the only employee in the Office of Emergency Service at that time. He told us they received $80,000 to get 4 temporary defensible space inspectors who would only work during the fire season at that time. Then we had the 600-pound gorilla of 2 days after our November meeting was the Paradise Fire. And that basically scared the pants off of everybody, thinking maybe this could happen here. It's the costliest U.S. fire, wildfire in history. So our attendance doubled. After we got through the holiday season, we got a lot more people coming to our meetings. Ubanet started a series. Patrick Mason and Consolidated described their complaint-driven enforcement process, which is as evolved beyond that now. And John Balsarian at Stafford OES, he had a house in Paradise that his daughter was living in while she attended Shepherd State, and it burned down and she barely got out in time. So he retired. They bought an RV and moved to Georgia. And the next month we had 52 people at our meeting. Virginia was appointed our secretary, and Jeff moved over to tech manager to start on a website for us. And the county announced the adoption of the Ready Nevada County theme. So this was about 3.5 years ago now. And their upcoming website for Ready Nevada County, and they started the quarterly stakeholders meetings, which are attended by representatives of all the organizations that have to do with land or the environment, this sort of thing, state parks, OES, all the fire agencies, Tom Forest, groups like ours, nonprofits. And we did a straw poll to say a majority supported a county ordinance to require defensible space inspection at the close of an escrow, which has evolved. We got 62 people, and this was our last meeting at the Helling Library because we basically outgrew space. And so we started coming here. The county appointed Captain Pettit from the Sheriff's Office to OES, which was a real good consolidation because law enforcement is in charge of evacuation. Fire guys put out the fire, law enforcement does evacuation. So they started that kind of teamwork thing, and someone from OES has been coming to pretty much every one of our meetings since. And the county appointed Jen Tamo as an analyst in OES, and she organized 3 standing and only town halls because everybody was freaked out about the Paradise Fire, still even in March. And Truckee passed an ordinance. They actually have a defensible space inspection requirement up in Truckee, which they can do because one fire protection district covers the whole region. That's not true down here. But they can do that up there. It's working well. So in April was our first meeting here in this lovely spot. We stopped taking attendance and tracking names because we realized we weren't doing anything with that information. And by now we had a website hosted on the Fire Safe Council server, and we're thankful to the Fire Safe Council for giving us that. County mailed its first annual booklet, which we all get here, to all Nevada County residents. And Captain Pettit announced that the defensible space inspector would come out if you have a complaint. And I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this was the first time the county took responsibility for providing these inspections instead of the fire agencies, because the fire agencies just didn't have the staffing funding to do that. And by then everybody saw that wasn't working, the county was going to have to do it. In May, I believe, Jamie, tell me if I'm wrong, I think this was the first free green waste disposal, and they got grant funding, and of course it's been hugely popular ever since after that. In August, we were up to 35 Firewise communities, and in September up to 37. The county announced the high-low sirens, first test of the code red system countywide, and Bob Long and I announced that we'd like to kind of step back by the end of the year. So here's a little story that I think a lot of people don't know about. In November that year, Dr. Ms. Kaufman, Joanne, she did a lot of the assessments for Firewise communities. She lives on the ridge. She alerted us that the Banner Lavacat overcrossing at Highway 49, there's a freeway coming underneath here, was the worst tree density that she'd ever seen at an evacuation choke point with everybody coming down Banner Mountain here. So I kind of took that up. I called Caltrans, I called the Transportation Commission. I talked to Tricia Tillotson, who was at that time Director of Public Works. And I made this little map of the various points. Here's Banner coming across here. And Caltrans sent me their 4-page encroachment permit that has 31 questions to answer and 34 data points to include, including every tree over 4 inches needs to be listed on an Excel spreadsheet with its diameter and its So I just gave up, but we had their attention. That's not me, that's a Caltrans person. We had their attention, and over the next few months, I got 3 phone calls from Caltrans, 2 of them before 8 in the morning, excitedly bringing me up to date on what they were doing about this situation. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, great. I'm glad you're still working on it. So I was rather surprised, but pleasantly so. I met one of them at the bridge, and eventually Caltrans let PG&E clear the Nevada City side of this. Here we're coming up Nevada City Highway here. Here's the bridge coming across, and you can see how much more open that is on this side of the street, as well as over here. They did all the kinds of thinning in here. Caltrans thinned the trees on the Banner Mountain side. And I think just within the last year, there was a fire underneath the Banner Mountain side of that bridge. And for some reason, I got a shout out from a Transportation Commission person at a Zoom meeting for having brought Caltrans' attention to this tree problem, because apparently they thought the fire would have been much worse if we had cleared that. So that's kind of a happy thing, I think. In December of that year, Janet Jacobs replaced Captain Pettit, and we produced a 1-pager on roadside clearing regulations so that people don't have to look up the code in the county or the city code. It's on one sheet of paper, and it's on our website if they can't figure out how far back they're supposed to clear their road. In January, Paul Cummings was hired as the program manager at OES, and they hired at the county the first full-time county defensible space inspector. We were up to 47 Firewise communities at this point. In April, we moved to Zoom meetings because the pandemic happened right in between here. So we went to Zoom, initially hosted by the county on the county Zoom account, but after a few months, we were allowed to use the Fire Safe Council Zoom account. Thank you, Jamie. In July, the county launched the Ready Nevada County Dashboard, which was basically an exponentially wonderful improvement in communications and planning and everything. And we're all familiar with that. Also in July, we produced this How to Stay Informed During the Wildfire Season, which started at Lake Wildwood. And then Virginia brought it to my attention, and we've updated it over the years, adding new like Watch Duty right there, which is fairly new. And this is on our website. In September, we opened our Zoom meetings to the public, which was the first time. Prior to that, it had always been just Firewise community reps. And we did that so that Firewise communities could use public Zoom meeting to meet the NFPA requirement during the pandemic. Now, just in December of 2020, we sent a letter authorized by committee vote, a whole coalition member vote to Caltrans, pointing out that they were way behind the curve with regard to roadside trees and safety. And I'm going to read a little bit from this because I'm really proud of this and a lot of people don't know about it. The Caltrans had put out State Route 49, I-80 to McKnight Way draft safety report. It's 49 pages long. And I wrote this letter, which we all signed. The draft report is admirable as far as it goes, but its sole focus is reducing traffic accidents and ignores the other danger that we face, the risk of burning to death in our cars when the highways jam during a wildfire evacuation. I looked at their website. I wrote, looking at your website, Caltrans' idea of highway safety relative to trees is limited to make sure trees don't fall on the road and block traffic. That's all I could find on the Caltrans website. We wrote, it's imperative that Caltrans update its vision of highway safety to include fuel reduction on sides of the highways and high-risk zones. The word evacuation appears only 3 times in this 49-page assessment. And where it's used, it's only in regard to making evacuation plans. Plans will not save us from lethal heat created by burning roadside trees and vegetation when we're sitting in our cars jammed. In an evacuation, you can start by eliminating the tree tunnel overhanging Route 49 to south of McKnight Way. We asked Caltrans to update its definition of highway safety to include safety from burning roadside transportation and revise the safety assessment. So the officers signed it. I sent it to Governor Newsom, to the guy who's in charge of Caltrans statewide, Placer County, the two Dolly representatives, county supervisors, and the Transportation Commission. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. In February, Scott took over as chair of the coalition, and we redefined the leadership as a steering committee instead of just 4 officers. Kristen Cook, Nick Johnson joined us later that year. Also that month, we produced this 5-page document. What if your 100 feet of defensible space goes beyond your property line? Because people still like, what the heck do I do? I've got BLM next to me, or I've got other people next to me, so that's all there. Bob Long's persistence, he is the chair of Sherwood Forest. They have a big piece of BLM property behind Sherwood Forest. And after he dogged them for a couple of years, they came up with an application so that private property owners could leave BLM land. In October, we produced a code red explainer with the front and the back. It looks like a lot of stuff and it's confusing, but if you are confused, you can figure it out. People were asking a lot of questions. In December, Lieutenant Jacobs returned to the sheriff's office. He got a promotion, and now we have Lieutenant Sean Scales. In March of this year, and we're almost done, Jen Tamo left OES and they hired Alex Keeble-Toll from the Sierra Fund as the senior administrative analyst. In May, we had this many Firewise communities. You can see how the numbers have grown, 22 in training, 29, a whole new category requesting to be in training before they can be a Firewise community. In July, Alessandro Zambrano was hired as the Wildlife County Wildfire Coordinator, and then Craig Griesbach appointed as the county's first, tell me if I'm wrong here, Craig, director level position in charge of OES operations. Is that correct? Yeah. So that was all this year. In August, Caltrans announced roadside clearing between Nightway and Lime Kiln. This is from the paper. That's why I went through that letter line by line. Did they decide to do this just because we sent a letter to the governor and the guy at the top of Caltrans and all that? Probably not. You know, they said there's been a lot of fires around the state and people stuck in bad evacuation situations. But I think this week it gets the grease. And I think we got some attention. And now they're going to start clearing around Lime Kiln and Nightway. So maybe we can be proud of that. In August, we produced another piece, Is There a Wildfire? This was after I did a demonstration and people said I should write it up about how to even find out if there's a fire, so that then you can keep track of it once you know there is a fire. So that's also on the website. We voted to approve asking the Board of Supervisors to put Measure B on the ballot, and we appreciate the Firewise reps who came to that meeting to do that. And the county announced 26 micro grants to certified Firewise communities. That represented the first money available to unincorporated neighborhood groups for small localized mitigation projects. And so that was really a big deal. We hope to see more of that. Probably could have been more if Measure B had passed, but keep our fingers crossed. In December, 2 representatives just today, I think, Scott sent us an email that we now have 2 representatives from Truckee identified to join the steering committee. So we're happy about that. We have to kind of do some stuff to the bylaws to bring them in. We're real happy to have them. So over the last 5 years, we've had all kinds of great education on all these kinds of topics. There's 12 here, and some of them get sort of recycled in different ways from other months and such, but we had a lot of good stuff going on. We've had tables at public events, the Wildfire Day at the Root Center, and then once the Builders Fair there. And you might be asking, well, whatever happened to the working groups? Basically, the working groups, the need for them went away because all the issues became so obvious and so out there, and the county was hearing it, and the county stepped up and started doing stuff. The county increased its involvement and now has full-time inspectors year-round who don't just wait for complaints, they actually go out there when they can, if they have the time, and look for things to enforce. The county put a sheriff's department officer, as I mentioned, into the OES, and they implemented technology tools like the dashboard and Zone Haven that have exponentially improved public communication. And as I had said, Truckee Fire District got an ordinance. Western County is a lot more complicated, but is now basically covered by AB 38, sort of, maybe we think so. We had a program on that, and there were 2 different opinions from CAL FIRE and the realtors, but that is way beyond our pay grade, and you can watch that video if you have any questions about that. So we have a lot to be proud of, and where do we go from here? Individual Firewise communities have challenges. Pat Leach just told me last night that a lot of groups are turning over their leadership, groups that have been around for a long time. So she's getting a lot of questions from the new leaders, and she has to tell them stuff over and over again. So I gave her some tips on how to avoid having to say the same thing over and over again. And I mean, I've noticed this from my own Firewise community. The NFPA and CAL FIRE requirements for becoming and staying a Firewise community have really become more stringent. They've really upped the bar. And we're just going to have to see what happens. Our coalition challenges include that there's, if you include the training groups, nearly 100 Firewise communities at this point, and the leaders are hard to track and manage. You know, who are they? They change over. Question, should we keep including the public, or should we go back to just being for Firewise community reps? I'll just say that we think this hybrid meeting format is going to address that we can have the reps here in the room and they can hang around as long as they want to talk to each other like they used to, and then the public can attend on Zoom. So hopefully this will work. We're going to need to review our bylaws and probably look at those documents that I showed you to make sure they're staying up to date. And Scott has finished his 2 years as chair, and we have not found a replacement for him yet. So will we meet in February? It depends. Will we have a chair? Don't know. But this is an issue. I will tell you that right now. So this is the end. Thank you to all the Firewise communities and reps, to county staff, CAL FIRE, Consolidated, Fire Safe Council, and everybody else who's helped us get this far. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Scott.
Well, thanks again to Ken and Susan and everyone who has played a role in making this organization what it is today. If that presentation represented where we came from and the where do we go from here, the future in between, we want to hit our partner reports to tell us what's going on right now in Nevada County. So if we can keep these a little bit more brief than usual, I appreciate it because we got some good content, but yes.
Okay, I'll be brief, but I do have a question to ask. How do you keep your hands clean during the Christmas season?
I don't know. How do I keep my hands clean during Christmas?
Sanitizer. I'll keep it real brief now, before you start throwing rotten fruit, that get a chance to get out.
We're not wasting a cake.
I thought I was supposed to.
Actually, we got a different view. Don't
Between the
do
doors.
it.
Okay, so I'll stand up. My mark is over here now, like a good actor. I can find my mark. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about fire activity real quickly. Comparing this year to last year as of Monday, so statistics, we're down 3,142 acres, and that's the SRA in the Nevada Eagle Placer unit. So down over 3,000 acres in 1 year is pretty darn good. And I want to say that not only the weather, but the work of you folks in this group, Firewise Council, and everybody else really contributed to that. So really good there, and we're down 31 fires from this time last year. So that's just terrific information. I already introduced Chief Hack, who was standing alongside of me at any of the big fires that we've had here running operations, and I leave you in really good hands. So you won't lose very much, and you'll probably gain a lot. So maybe less jokes would be a good thing. As far as CAL FIRE, we're kind of starting that downswing for the end of the year. So we went to 1 engine as of November 21st in all of our stations. And as of Monday next week, we start our Amador period, which means that our Amador staffed engines all up and down the 80 corridor will still remain staffed, Higgins will remain staffed, and Loma Rica will remain staffed. In addition to that, we'll have 3 SRA, what we call wildland engines, or SRA engines, staffed, 1 in Truckee. So the east side of Nevada County will still have a CAL FIRE engine staffed 24/7. The other one will be a Colfax, which gets into Paradise, Chicago Park, and over Hill, that area pretty quick, and Nevada City. So those 3 stations will still be staffed 24/7 with a 3-person engine company to, if the weather switches and we start getting wildland fires, we can always staff up the other engines. But those are staffed 24/7, available for all kinds of emergency response. So other than that, thank you for my time here. You folks have really made it great, and it's not lost on me how lucky I was to have this career. So thank you all for my job. I appreciate it. That's it for me.
Chief wants to follow that. Jamie?
I just have a very quick report. I don't.
Go for it.
No, I just
Don't
want-
miss your mark.
I just wanted to say that we are at 86 Firewise communities right now and 6 pending approval that have been submitted. Pat's goal is to have 100 by the end of the year. She has several more to submit. And she's sorry she can't be here tonight because she's submitting renewals and more applications.
Fantastic. Oh, yes.
I'll make this up as I go here.
A few different things. We're in the process of finalizing our RFPs for several crucial plans over this next year. So our CD, a request for proposals. So essentially it's a bid package that we send out to work on various projects or plans. So we have our community wildfire protection plan that we're going to be bidding out here shortly to work on this next year. We have our local hazard mitigation plan working on this next year for an update, as well as our evacuation study. So these are 3 crucial plans that we need to update or implement that are going to be great for our community, really raise awareness for projects and priority areas that we need to complete. So we'll be engaging with you and several other stakeholders over this next year and a half. We presented some updates and opportunities to the Board of Supervisors meeting today regarding hazardous vegetation ordinance. We received some feedback and we'll be taking that back to the board likely in February of next year. We're working with Fire State Council on kicking off the South County Shaded Field Break project on Thursday. So if you're in that area or you're interested, that's at the Alta Sierra Clubhouse at 6 o'clock, right, Jamie? If you aren't involved or don't know about our bi-weekly virtual office hours with Alex and Alessandra, sometimes we have guests on there. They are amazing. They're really cool. I was on the one last Friday. We provide a lot of information resources. They're kind of ad hoc, with question and answers, things like that. And to save the date, if you're interested, our board workshop is January 25th through the 27th. We'll be likely presenting on the 25th from an OES perspective, but if you're interested, and put that on your calendars. Thanks, Craig. Anything in CEO's office? Yeah, just as a partner report. All right, and then no one from Consolidated here, so yeah, I guess that's it. So we're going to jump into the main, for the second half of our content for tonight of where we go from here. So up first from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Evan Smith.
Problem. Yeah. Okay. Natural Resources Conservation Service is an agency that is part of the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. We are set up to help private landowners do conservation work. That's agricultural or non-industrial timberland. We were born out of the Dust Bowl in 1935, originally called the Soil Conservation Service. We changed our name to more incorporate, because we do forestry, all sorts of natural resources. Well, this is a lot of sides, so go fairly quickly. There we go. Primarily, we're technical assistants, and it's all free service. It's paid through your tax dollars, siphoned through the USDA Farm Bill. So it's a free, all our services are free to you as a private landowner. Technical assistance, we can provide biological, we have biologists for habitat enhancements, engineers for water designs, water structures, diverting off roads, water pipes, pipelines, water troughs, all sorts of things. And then I'm the forester in the office, Grass Valley local office. And then past that, we have programs that can give you financial assistance to get the work done. The financial assistance is for landowners that, or people that have control of the land through a rental or lease agreement. Our main programs are these three. Probably 95% of the time, we'd be offering you, or you best fit would be for EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program. If you are already doing great stewardship of the land, and EQIP can't really help you because you're doing a great job already, we have the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. So it doesn't reimburse you as much. It's more to help you keep what you're doing well going, or build on that. Regional Conservation Partnership Program is not offered in Nevada County at this time. That could change in the next years or so. Essentials. It's a grant. It is not a grant program per se. It's a contract-based reimbursement program. So you are paid on contract items that are we work with you to put into a plan and put on a map. So you complete a unit, get reimbursed on that unit, and move on to the rest of the property. You don't have to do the whole property. You do it however amount of work you feel you can do. Yeah, it's a reimbursement-based program. It is a contract with the federal government, the financial assistance, and it is competitive. So there's no guarantee you'll get funding, but it is a fairly good chance you will. And at this time, through our office, it's for forestry, it's about 6 months to a year wait to go through the whole process and see if you get funded or not. We have a fair amount of backlog from people applying after the campfire. It is the person who signs up is the one that gets the money, and then you either can do the work yourself or hire a contractor. The contractor does not get paid directly. It's through the person who signs up. That said, contractors, RPFs, other people can get permission from you as the landowner to work on the land and sign up to the program and get the money that way. Right. And the last line, we have technical service providers out there you can hire to create a plan for you if you want a more formal plan than what we come up in our office. This it's based on resource concerns, so soil, water, air, degradation, plant health. And from those soil resource or the natural resource concerns, the way you get funded is you get a ranking score from assessments of those resource concerns on the property, and the highest score gets one down until the fund for that year or that funding period is used up. But then you can get deferred to the next funding period if you want. You keep on trying. So this is just a list of natural resources we consider, and this is a list of our work practices that you can apply, and they range from work practices for thinning, seeding, grasses or other herbaceous plants, planting trees, to cleanup of catastrophic fire or other events like the big storm we had in December. We can help you with that. Or if PG&E left a bunch of logs on your land, we can possibly help with that. And it ranges from all sorts of things to habitat enhancements, engineering. We can help with a lot of things. So come to us with what you want to do, and we'll see what we can apply. The eligibility is pretty simple. You must have control of the land either through a rental or lease or own the land through deeded. You have to make under $900,000 a year for the last 3 years. And you have to have something agricultural. So non-industrial forestry lands, we count the trees as a crop because they can be counted as timber. And the fourth one, since it's illegal federally, we can't work on land that is growing cannabis. We are a non-regulatory agency, meaning we don't enforce anything but the environmental regulations you have to enforce because it's federal money that you'll be getting. The other thing, if you do get funded, it is counted as taxable income, so you get taxed on money you're reimbursed at the end of the year. Some of that can be written off under Schedule F or other parts of the tax code. It is a contract, and other things we look at other than endangered species and habitat on your land is cultural resources. So we will do an archaeological check, and the worst case scenario is we flag off area you can't work in that, or you just do hand work in that area to protect the grinding stone or old canal, earth canal, that sort of thing. The contract for EQIP is 2 or 3 years, so you have that amount of time to get the work done, and that can be extended up to 1 year. So, and you can get the work done once we tell you it's good, and you can start work. You can get the work done in a month or take the whole 2 years. And you don't need receipts or anything to prove you did the work. The proof is the ability to work. We'll come inspect, and then you'll get reimbursed. And last slide. This is my contact info and the office. We'll look at it on Presley Way, but you can do a search for NRCS California and search for our office as well. And I'll stick around for questions. I have some leaflets and information to hand out as well.
And I think one question people will have is, what is the funding cycle right now? If somebody walked into the office tomorrow with it. 6 months, 12 months?
Yeah, that's the 6 months to a year for forestry clients. That it's since we have not as much crop and pasture and range people, it's a lot shorter for them. We have we have a new planner office that's going faster. That's our standard answer. 6 months to a year to go through the whole thing and find out if you get funded. Unfortunately. Yeah, I can wait for questions unless someone has anything.
Yeah, just to bring this together, Jeff actually shared his experience within the program. So if anyone's interested, I'd say go back and find that meeting, which was recorded. But to make sure I understand, so I have a couple acres. It has a definite clearing need. I should probably go to your office like tomorrow morning, fill out an application. And then if approved, we'll say 12 months from now, for X amount per acre, then I go clear it. And then it's almost like a reimbursement, so to speak. Is that kind of operationally it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like more like a rebate. You do the work or buy the product, and we reimburse you after we inspect it.
Got it.
And
great.
There's no size limit. It could be 100 square feet to hundreds of acres. So there's no. It's meant to be an incentive for us to help you get this work done.
Another quick question that is relevant to these. Can you get reimbursed for something that you do during that 6 to 12 month waiting period?
No. You only get reimbursed for work you do after you get funded.
Great.
Yeah. It's the fortunate side effect of government contracting. Okay.
You said it was individuals, so an HOA couldn't apply for these funds?
Yes, HOA can. Nonprofits, other companies can apply. All it needs is one person to be the signer and like the person who interacts with us.
So Firewise community could,
Yeah.
as the community could apply.
Definitely. If your organization, your land, that's not government land.
You might emphasize that the NCRS also compensates landowners to do work off property, like the BLM around mine, as you know.
Yes.
My road, my driveway goes through BLM before it gets to my property. And NCRS covered doing my fire break along that road, so that was also helpful.
Yeah, if you have an agreement in place, like you do for easement to go through government land, we can work on it. You just need an agreement of some sort to have control. And that's all you need. We can work on government land and aspects like that.
I just have a quick question. Once funded, are the homeowners subject to be 1099 on the funding?
Yes, you will receive a 1099-G from the US, from IRS. That goes into, we do share information with our government agencies, but it's like financial information with IRS and our sister organization, FSA, Farm Service Administration. And if we find endangered habitat, we do communicate that with Fish and Game. But again, we won't turn you in for a permitted house or something, building project on your land. We're here to help you and incentivize you. Anything else? Otherwise, you can talk to me later.
Thanks so much for being here. Yep, up next. Fire safe. Katie.
I'll be brief. I don't have a whole lot to offer, but I don't know what. Oh, thanks. I don't work on that because I give no help to you. So I'm just going to go over a couple of the opportunities and funding programs that we have to help residents and Firewise communities. Many of these are things that have been in existence for several years. There's a couple new ones. Specifically our Access and Functional Needs Program, which is in partnership with County of Nevada Office of Emergency Services, United Way, and FEMA. I'll get everybody's credit in there. I'm like, and so anyhow, it's disabled and aged over 65 and income requirements, but it does offer assistance for defensible space clearing for applicants, and it is covered 100%. So, too fast. So we do have several hundred openings still left in the program. So we encourage anybody who might qualify for the program to go to our website and apply. We're still qualifying in about 350 spots right now. So in addition to that, our Fire Safe Council has had a long-standing residential shipping program. For a couple of years, we were avoided funding, but we were recently funded by CAL FIRE fire prevention grants to cover the cost of our residential shipping program for homeowners who are doing defensible space clearing and want to be able to utilize these services. It is free of charge. Again, you can go to our website and submit a request. And then piggybacking off that, we already talked a little bit about green waste. Susan was kind enough to put this. This program will also cover green waste drops. We have yet to set the schedule, but we'll be working on that this month. And we intend to offer green waste drop opportunities. The grant runs 18 months, but we would like to offer those monthly, hopefully bi-weekly, until we're no longer preventing or performing fire prevention activities. And so more to come on that, but we should have an excess of green waste available funding opportunity or drop opportunities for the community to share. In addition to our access and functional needs defensible space clearing, we initiated a low-cost defensible space clearing program for homeowners that may not qualify for the income restrictions under access and functional needs. We recently reinstated this program. We were inundated with requests. There is no minimum. I know a lot of people who are trying to achieve defensible space, when they talk to a local vendor, there's a minimum cost per day. And that's very difficult for a lot of the residents in the community to be able to come up with that dollar amount. So we'll come out and let you get started little chunks at a time. So you can reach out and we'll come and do a full defensible space inspection and give you some guidance on what needs to be done. And then give you a quote for low cost services. What we have in the works right now, and more will be announced on this coming soon, but we'll have a home hardening reimbursement or rebate program for residents that need home hardening services performed. It will cover everything from decks, roof, vents. So we're waiting to hear back on when that will launch. Our board of directors is working on our Red Zone Affair fundraiser. This year, they've dedicated all of the proceeds to go to microgrants for Firewise community.
Off to the county. So good stuff up to this point, talking about some of the money that's out there. We've got reps from CEO's office and Office of Emergency Services talking about how to organize projects. If Fred won't remember this, but the first two meetings that I led a couple years ago, I said the one new committee we wanted to start was project management. And I was really hoping someone was just really eager to, some newly retired Deloitte, McKinsey type was going to come in and just run with that. That didn't happen. But as money becomes available, it's a lot easier when you go make the case for bigger projects. That's going to be part of what they talk about tonight. So with that, who's up first?
This is the spot. Good evening. My name is Ariel Lovett, and I am a project administrator in the county executive office, working with Allison and Keeble-Toll, who I know you all worked with. And thank you, Scott, and everyone for inviting us to be here tonight. And thank you for all the incredible work you do educating our community about wildfire preparedness. I feel lucky to be here and to be able to have heard Susan's really inspiring presentation about the growth of this organization. And actually, in our OES, I've only been with the county about a year. Yeah, and so I think that is really a testament to the incredible work of this group, but also the incredible challenge that we face. And so I think that question of kind of what now, we with measure B falling short. I think I'm actually 2 slides right here, but.
Oh, sorry.
I appear to be missing. Now, okay. Well, either way, we can just chat too. But Measure B fell short, as we've talked about. The county continues to make emergency preparedness a priority, working with our partners and our stakeholders in the community to aggressively seek and secure funding. And that's what Scott asked us to talk a little bit about tonight, is just kind of overall our approach to grants, and then Craig and Alex will really talk specifically about our Office of Emergency Services and their work in grant funding. So one thing I wanted to mention that, understanding that emergency preparedness is a priority, we integrate this into all of our board objectives at the county. And so including those of economic development, obviously there's a nexus there, as well as recreation, which was the new objective adopted by our board in 2022. And that objective, I'm going to read it to get it right, but is to promote sustainable recreation in partnership with community providers and other jurisdictions to enhance recreation access, support public health and safety, realize economic opportunities, and preserve our natural resource assets. And so that, before I jump into grants, I just wanted to take a moment to make sure this group and all of the folks at home, and all the Firewise communities are aware of the county's Recreation Resiliency Master Plan, which we're launching this fall. And this plan is not only a first for Nevada County, but it's, I think, the second in the state as an approach to really looking at recreation as an opportunity to address also emergency preparedness. So how can we integrate solutions that enable us to adapt better to extreme weather events? So for example, could a trail be a fuel break? Could a park or open space be a fuel break or a emergency services staging area? So we really want to take this opportunity to invite our community to be part of that. There'll be a lot of focus groups, there'll be a survey kicking off in the new year. And so we'll continue to communicate, but if anyone wants to sign up for those alerts, please go to this website, which is nevadacountyca.gov/recreation, and you can sign up and then we'll send alerts when there are events associated with that plan. So moving into our grants program, just overall as a county, there have been some questions about kind of what is the county doing and what is the approach. And really our goal is to seek and secure grant funding for our community and county as a whole. And that means working with all of our 4 agencies within the county, our multiple departments, but also all of our community stakeholders with these kind of 5 key areas. So it's identification, it's prospecting, where are we finding the opportunities, alignment and assessing, so vetting those opportunities. Is this a good opportunity for the county, or is it a better opportunity for one of our partners? Developing those proposals, readying projects, and I know Scott talked about that, and that's something we talk about a lot at the county, we'll talk about more, but making sure those projects are ready so that we can propose them and be successful in that grant funding. And then advocacy. I'll talk a little bit about what each of those, and I'll be really quick. So vetting, so our opportunities, so we want to provide from our office, the county executive office, and I'll introduce Amy in a minute, and she does a lot of this work, but also all of our agencies do this work collaboratively. But it's providing tools and structure to find those federal and state grant funding opportunities and making sure that we see when they're coming in a timely way as best we can. Establish that process to ensure that those opportunities reach the right eyes. So is the right person even looking at this to know how we can leverage these opportunities? And sometimes it's being really creative. Is it funding for, again, I use the example of recreation and emergency preparedness, but sometimes we can leverage funding for, maybe it's a drug and alcohol prevention grant that we see, but really we can use that to create recreational amenities that address that issue, but also benefit the community in other ways. Provide a structure to support collaboration and coordination of projects. And this is huge in our community and a key, I think something our small community is actually really, really good at is that collaboration. And it's a commitment of our executive office and really Allison's leadership is to, and the model that our county really follows is not to have the county do all of the implementation, but really work with our partners in terms to get those projects done. And then develop the capacity to write the proposals. And Amy does some of that, but it's also establishing a network of grant writers that we can work with. And that's something that we have, as well as build relationships with contracted grant writers to help with that work. More opportunities, develop shovel-ready projects. So we want to hear from our partners as well. And I'll talk a little bit about our ledge platform here. Our legislative platform is annually our Board of Supervisors develops a document that really provides the basis for our advocacy, but also highlights key projects. And the legislative platform is publicly available. I'm happy to share it. We're in the midst of developing the 2023 platform, which will be brought to the board on January 10th. So again, if anyone's interested in coming, learning about it more then or having us share it, but that really lists our priority legislative positions as well as key projects. And there are many fuels reductions projects in that legislative platform, but also helps us engage with our jurisdictional partners, the cities, the town, NID, community partners to find out where are those key projects in the community that we can advance as well. So actually we have examples, the North Stem 1 fuel suppression project was an example of one that we were able to further through this process. I have others, but I'm really keenly aware of time. So administrative and implementation capacity. So I talked about working with contracted grant writers and consultants, really looking at how we can enhance the capacity of our nonprofit partners. And then identify and coordinate with advocacy opportunities. We work with both state and federal lobbyists or advocates who help us both know when funding opportunities are coming, but also lift up our voices and advocate for our rural needs. So, and again, emergency preparedness and fire prevention are high in those. But if there are ever key issues, we really welcome that partnership too, to make sure if there's something that we should be aware of, or maybe not, but to advance. And then staff focused on identification, sharing, coordination, and development, and that's where I wanted to introduce Amy. Yes. Where I want to introduce Amy, who's our staff member in the county executive office, who's doing some of this work, and we'll tell a little bit about what that process looks like and how we might work more with you. Thanks.
I'd also like to reiterate what Ariel just said. Thank you all so much for all the work you're doing. I'm also from this area. I lived away for a long time and I came back. It's just really wonderful to be seeing this kind of care that's been taken in our community. So I am the grants coordinator for the county. I've only been doing it for about 5 months, but I am here tonight to let you know that A, I am here, I exist. And B, the way that that relates to you is that not only do I serve the county itself, I also work for the partners in a sense. So if we have grants that we see that look good collaboratively speaking, like if there are grants that either require or encourage us to reach out to community partners and work on collective projects together, or which I just know because I'm a resident and because I try to make it my business to think creatively about how the county can best spread its wings and share with everyone, I will reach out to the people who I know about who are appropriate for the grant prospect in front of me. The bulk of my job is just being aware of grants that are coming out, grants that exist, and the projects that are appropriate to match them to. And that's the prospecting aspect. I have a lot of emails that come to me every single day that I sort through, look for keywords, look for matching requirements, look for applicability, and then I summarize them and send them to the appropriate people if they seem like a good match. The next part of what I do is vetting. So if someone says, hey, I am interested in this grant in the lucky event that I did my job, and then reply to me, then the conversation begins about what we need to meet eligibility, if we're even there, what are the next steps, how do we develop a roadmap and a plan. And that leads us to convening, which is one of the more fun aspects of my job is the herding cats situation, which is where there's just a lot of communication and making sure that everyone is doing what they need to do and making sure the targets are getting met and that everyone wins. So as far as that relates to all of you, I actually wanted to get a quick read on the room and Zoom as well. How many of you are actually thinking that you will be in the position of applying for grants or looking for grants? Don't be shy, raise your hand. You're who I'm talking to. And anyone else, you at least get to have this information. What I want to get home for you is like what you need to be thinking about with your prospecting. So first of all, you need to know what your strategic goals are. You need to define it. Are they ephemeral? Have you defined your project, or are you at the point where you're shovel ready? Are you just thinking about how to thin material in your neighborhoods, or are you ready to invest in a chipper? You need to figure that out before you actually move forward with the grant. Likewise, if you're not a 501c3, who do you know who is? What does the grant want you to be in order to be eligible? Do you have a partner who you need to be thinking about? What are the politics with that partner? What is the capacity of that partner? What is their workload at the moment? So you need to figure all these things out before you move on with the grant. I included this page, which might be irrelevant for most of you because it's more of a state level, it is a state level grant search engine, but I wanted to get you a visual just so you can be familiar with the ways in which you can search for things. As you can see here, I typed in fuels management. This is the California Grants Portal website. It's a great resource for filtering out what is available immediately, what's coming up on the horizon, what's been funded in the past, and what the cycles are like. So you can see here, there are multiple drop-down menus that you can utilize. And you don't have to limit yourself to an individual applicant. You can also be thinking, like I said, about the partners that you might be working with and thinking creatively about how you can collectively approach a big goal instead of just as individuals. So I would just advise you, if you're using a search engine like this or any other, think outside the box, which is easy enough to say, but Don't limit yourself to what you see immediately in front of you. If you're interested in the project, you next have to ask yourself, is it going to be feasible? Do you have the right timeline in front of you that you've been thinking about? Maybe you don't. Maybe you have to postpone for the next year and work towards that goal. But these are important things to think about, because just because you're not ready this year doesn't mean you won't be ready the next. This is how progress happens. Do you have the staff capacity? If not, how are you going to get there? Can you partner with someone else who has it, et cetera? And of course, do you have the infrastructure? When it gets to convening, my limited experience, I advise to be clear on who's taking the lead on any project from the very get-go. Everyone likes clarity and hierarchy when it comes to collective partnerships. You don't want anyone passing the buck, so make that your #1 priority. Next, what are your deadlines? Mark your calendars, set reminders for yourself, whatever works. Do you have designated assignments? I find personally that it's best to identify within your team what the strengths are of everyone. Not everyone's a good public speaker, not everyone's a good writer, not everyone is a holistic thinker. Some people are better at data than others. So figure out what that is, and then assign tasks and divvy up the work for you. And of course, if there are documents, maps, or data that are going to strengthen your proposals or your argument, make sure that you have that organized as soon as possible, because it can help you develop your plan. It can help clarify for you what the story about your proposal, your project really is. And likewise, you need to assign that task to the person who's good at it. And of course, a lot of grants don't necessarily require data or numbers or even pictures, but those things are always useful in supporting what you're trying to communicate to the funders. Pictures are often very useful tools in many grants that allow someone to visualize something that's very difficult to figure out in their mind's eye. And last of all, hopefully, I hope that some of you will reach out to me in the coming weeks or in the future if you have any questions or ideas or anything. The funnest part about my job is that I get to think creatively about all kinds of issues. I get to see all of the different projects going on in the county. And while I don't have nearly the kind of working knowledge I wish I had about all of the different projects that are going on, my God, there's so many, I have an eager drive to do so. So if you have a question or an idea or a problem, that is my favorite thing in the world. So email me with questions, ideas, or anything else. Thanks so much. And I'm going to pass this off to Alex Keeble-Toll, who will be speaking about wildfire mitigation grants.
I'm totally gonna pass this to Susan. Yeah. She'll advance slides for me. Because some people have a fear of heights, and I live in like fear of curse. I have like clicker PTSD. So if you don't mind advancing slides for me. So I'm Alex, I'm a senior analyst in OES. I'm noting that actually with Ariel and Amy, we're in good company here with folks who actually grew up in Nevada County, came back and chose to make our work here. So that's exciting. Lots of place-based knowledge here. So basically, I wanted to give an outline because there's a million different things that I could cover in terms of OES. We've grown fivefold and we've got a lot going on. So I kind of broke it out, overview of our grants, and I tried to further break those down in terms of projects we're working on that are more at the landscape scale. Like it's too big for one Firewise community, but maybe for multiple Firewise communities or for a community at large. And then projects that are more at the community scale. So what types of projects do we have that would benefit you if you lived in a specific neighborhood and you were concerned about evacuation routes, that type of thing. And then individual stewardship scale projects. So some projects that would support you at the individual kind of parcel level in the way like a CFIP or an EQIP type project would. So you're kind of like zooming way out and then in. I'll talk about microgrants for Firewise communities, and then a little just quick touch on county level plans and why they should be on your holiday list. Next slide. So as far as landscape level projects, we've got kind of a whole portfolio going on. We've got a map of Western Nevada County here showing where some of those projects lay. If it's in white, it means it's been funded. If it's in yellow, it means we've submitted a proposal and we're waiting to hear back whether it's been funded. So we've got the Ponderosa Phase 1, which was obviously in coordination with Fire State Council of Nevada County. They were really the lead on that project on the ground. South County as well. As Jamie and Craig both mentioned, that is kicking off with a town hall this Thursday from 6 to 8 at the Alta Sierra Country Club. And there's a number of different Firewise communities that directly benefit from that. I would leave it to Jamie to list them off, or I have to look up in my notes, but basically it's Lone Star, Buck Mountain, and Brewer are kind of the general areas of that project. So if you're in that area, we encourage you to come out for that. That was also funded by CAL FIRE. It's 339 acres, and it will be individual property owners, but doing some of that roadside vegetation abatement. We also have Woodpecker Ravine, also funded by CAL FIRE. This is a 410 acre project. We are hoping to pair that project with a much larger FEMA brick grant where that project will be leveraged as a match. So we haven't actually gotten going on that guy yet.
That's the hood.
And the blank screen. Shall I continue or shall we wait so that you're capturing this for your own laptop? But I don't think you can see it. This seems to be the internet. There we go. Ta-da, and we're back. Okay. You know, yeah, if you don't mind. So Woodpecker Ravine, and kudos to CAL FIRE. You're noting a lot of these funded projects have actually been funded by CAL FIRE. That's excellent. It's always great to have local partners with that place-based knowledge and then be able to get those projects on the ground. We have Ponderosa Phase 2. This was funded, actually, this is one of the legislative platform projects that was funded. So CDS is congressionally directed spending. We basically made a earmark request for funds for that project. I'll quickly go over how that process works because it'll come up in future discussion of micro grants. But basically, we put in an earmark request. If that request gets support, when it comes back to us, we basically end up writing a grant proposal that then gets funneled through the appropriate agency. So in this case, it was U.S. Forest Service. So what that means is when we submit that earmark request, it's not like a fully fleshed out project per se, like we haven't submitted maps with the project or maybe identified exactly how implementation rollout will look like. But once we get that notification, then that gets rolled up in the actual proposal that goes to the agency, in this case, U.S. Forest Service. So for this project, I know local partners have been working on it for a long time. Unfortunately, our CDS request came in much slower than what we asked for. So the project is smaller. It's about 300 acres instead of about the 1,200 acre overall phase 2 project that we're hoping to get funded. But we do have additional funding pending with FEMA for that project. Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. Craig mentioned that this is one of the set of RFPs, requests for proposals, that we'll be putting out at the end of the year, basically to get some of our plans updated. We did apply for Community Wildfire Defense Grant funding to fund what will be a very robust CWPP, not just a CWPP, but a land management plan and an interactive dashboard all to go together. But while we're waiting to hear back from that, County of Nevada has committed to go ahead and fund the CWPP portion of the overall package. We learned last month that our local hazard mitigation plan update will be funded by FEMA, which is great news. And that with the CWPP will go together. Kind of, there's a lot of components that get pulled across from the wildfire plan into the hazard mitigation plan, just because wildfires are hazard in Nevada County. South Yuba Rim, we applied to FEMA for funding for this. FEMA requires a 25% local match. So we actually went after Sierra Nevada Conservancy funding to cover that match. And then in the interim, learned that Cal OES will be funding that match through what's called their Prepared California Jumpstart program. So essentially, the state will pick up the local match for that federally funded project. And that's great news, because for us at the county, it means that we can basically take those funds that we had kind of, put a pin in for that project and say, oh, now we've got a little more wiggle room and we can maybe do something else important with those funds in the wildfire mitigation sphere. And then finally, Ponderosa Phase 1 maintenance. So this is another congressionally directed spending request that we put out. CDS funds come with a 1-to-1 required match. So we applied to Sierra Nevada Conservancy to provide that match. And that'll basically be maintenance of the very top project, which I think is kind of cool, right? We're working our way down through these projects and then we're doubling back on the maintenance aspect within 2 to 3 years of completing the implementation so that we actually maintain that benefit. Okay, next slide. So these are the community level projects right now focused on basically ingress and egress, evacuation. We will be coming out with an evacuation study, also funded by CAL FIRE, where we're hoping to look at where are opportunities and constraints on improving evacuation in Nevada County. So it's not going to be a plan. It's not going to tell you where you should go or what you should do, but it will identify where we could potentially make improvements to basically improve outcomes around evacuation. Then we have 3 microgrants. We've got our Storm Debris Microgrants program, which we're wrapping up now. We've got Microgrants 2.0, evacuation route microgrants. Both of those I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And then we have a roadside vegetation abatement project that we're submitting our final request for information pieces to FEMA this week. And that'll be 300 miles of roadside vegetation abatement on county roads. Finally, at the individual level, Jamie covered the Access and Functional Needs Program, which is in coordination between Nevada County, Fire Safe Council, Cal-OES, FEMA, with support from the United Way of Nevada County. And then we do have pending that Woodpecker Ravine Resilient Communities Project, and that's the one that will be paired with the CAL FIRE Woodpecker Ravine Shaded Fuel Break. And that's a really big holistic project that includes home hardening and defensible space at the individual property level. And we did hear that that had been advanced for environmental and cultural review. We're hoping to hear back next year that we've secured that funding and get to move over on that project, which is really exciting. Okay, microgrants. This is where I show you the money. I thought showing you the money was catchy. That's what I tell my kids when they're like, hey, I need whatever. I'm like, well, show me the money. I'm like, have you done your yard work? So we just wrapped up our Storm Debris Microgrant program. A number of folks needed extensions just based on the conditions this year. But we were really excited to award 26 $3,600 microgrants. We had an opportunity to apply for California Fire Safe Council funds. Very small amount of money, but the potential to do 5 more microgrants that essentially we'd be awarding to folks who didn't get a microgrant the first round, because it was extremely hard. All the projects basically that were submitted to that program were excellent, and we wanted to fund them all. And it would be really nice to be able to do even just 5 more. And then finally, evacuation route microgrants. So we're really excited about this. This is something we've submitted to CDS congressionally directed spending opportunity for the fiscal year 24. We would like to be able to do 48 $25,000 microgrants. And basically the impetus behind that is that we've heard from a lot of folks that specifically when addressing evacuation routes on private roads, like $3,600 isn't going to cut it. That road maybe needs a lot more work. It maybe needs more than just roadside vegetation abatement. Maybe it needs some potholes to be addressed. Maybe it needs some widening. Could be a multitude of things. We want to open ourselves up to the opportunity to provide microgrants at scale that's meaningful. And the reason why I was pointing out this CDS process, you don't fully flesh out your project in advance of that request is, we haven't fully fleshed out what awarding these microgrants would look like, but that's our hope, and we are committed to figuring it out if we get that funding. So, next slide. Just quickly by the numbers for the storm debris microgrants, and this is why we're so committed to continuing to provide those opportunities as is Fire Safe Council. Just we know there's a need, and we want to be able to direct those funds. So we got 76 applications from 35 communities. We were only able to award 26 grants. And I was like, why am I missing one? It's not adding up. There were 10 microgrants that were awarded for ingress, egress, roadside vegetation abatement. That was by far the greatest need. These are just some success stories. We've been getting all these report outs for the microgrants. If you want to see more about projects that got funded on Mondays, you can go online to OES's Facebook page. We have microgrant Mondays. We've been doing little profiles with pictures of the microgrants that have been completed. And it's been totally awesome to see how far $3,600 can go, in particular when folks are matching it with 1-to-1 or beyond sweat equity. It's really, really incredible. So more success stories. And as you can see, there's a theme here. Lots of roadside vegetation abatement was important for you Firewise communities. Finally, virtual office hours. We invite you all to come. It is bi-weekly topic focused. We offer support for project development. Kind of our idea behind the office hours as it relates to projects is yeah, we don't have the money to show per se in office hours, but we've kind of hit on it a few different ways. And that is, you really got to get a project to the point where it has been developed collaboratively, you've thought through all the pieces, you have a sound budget, and you're ready for planning. And so we think virtual office hours are a great opportunity to get together with other Firewise community leaders, with staff with OES, and kind of talk through what does a successful project look like? What types of things should you be thinking about? Who could you work with? How could you turn a wildfire mitigation project to a water-based funder like Department of Water Resources? Like, how do you think a bit more holistically about these projects? We will be offering microgrant workshops anytime microgrant programs are available to us to fund. So we kind of got some feedback from the last microgrant program that folks would like some more support in thinking through project development. So that would definitely be something to include. And we're open to folks suggesting topics. I encourage you guys to come on Friday if you want to dig more into anything in this presentation and grow less about specific projects. And we're really hoping you'll come Friday so that you can give us feedback on what an effective microgrant program would look like. What level of funding is meaningful? What types of projects do you need funded? What are the opportunities and constraints for you in terms of implementing microgrants? Do you need to be matched up with 501c3s? Those types of things. We're all looking to hear from you on that. And quickly about plans. Here is your winter reading. Very exciting. But I point these out because 3 of them are obviously plans that we've touched on that we're updating. One of them is a plan that CAL FIRE updates annually. And in the huge universe of wildfire mitigation, this is like our local constellation of priorities. And even if you are not super interested in these things, it's really useful to read through and see where your Firewise community falls in terms of these local and more regional priorities and how these different plans are talking about wildfire mitigation so that you can think about how does a funder think about wildfire mitigation? What types of things are they looking for? What ways are they looking for me to speak about this when I am developing a project? And I will just add, on the plans, it is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street for the county plans that are being developed. Technical expertise is awesome. We also need to ground truth here with place-based knowledge. So these are also opportunities for you to provide us input in terms of opportunities and constraints. That's it. I talked really fast. I hope I didn't go over. I could have said so much more.
Alex, Amy, Ariel, thanks so much for being here tonight. Any questions for those 3 specifically? I know we had one in the chat. People are looking for a map of the field break projects. Can we get a copy of that we could post on our website? So whoever asked that in the chat, know that give us till this time next week, but we will get that up on the coalition website. What else? Questions?
So the map was just the western, southern county. What about eastern county? Is there anything specific, Alex?
Yeah, so Eastern County Strictly Fire Protection District is in the process of updating their community wildfire protection plan. They did an update, and anyone who's an expert in the room can correct me, but I believe it was 2019, and they produced a bunch of new maps that are available. I think I just Googled it and downloaded it, but they do have a whole set of maps, and they have like a halo programmatic planning, and that's kind of their primary overarching map is looking at where is their community and then how are they doing this halo of protection going out, and it goes out in terms of priority. Is that capturing it accurately, folks?
So, yeah, I think you're in there.
Great question. Anything else? Anything in the chat, Jeff?
No, just how do we access this video, which will be up on YouTube in a few days.
And then we send the email out when the video is ready.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for participating tonight and throughout the full year. Appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. Again, Chief Mathias, congrats on retirement. You will be missed.
It's been an honor. Thank you very much.
All right. And with that, we're going to stop the recording. But for those of you hanging out here in the room,